To order at 6:05 p.m. Okay, first up we have the pledge. Please stand with me as we say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. Pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Yeah, watch it be.
All right, welcome to our EDC meeting today. Before we get going, I just want to take a moment to lift up and remember a member of our board that passed away here in the last few weeks, Karen Kinlaw. She passed away on July 26, 2024. She was a member of this board for 20 years, integral part of this board for a really long time. A lot of people have come and gone, and she stayed here. She was friends with a whole lot of people, and she'll be sorely missed. Just take kind of a moment for her, as we're going to sorely miss her here on this board. So. Okay, we're going to get going with public comments. Do we have any public comments? No public comments. We'll move on to our regular agenda. Our first item is presentation update by Brazoria County Alliance on the benefits of annual membership from the Brazoria County Alliance. Tonight we have Patty Wolf here to present to us. Patty, could you tell us what the Alliance does and how we can fit into that?
I will be happy to. Thank you for inviting me. I don't get invited places very often. Number one, because I talk a lot, and number two, because I talk loud. But I know that you all have lives at home, and so I will keep it as short as possible and give those of you who I have not met the opportunity to answer any questions. I've had the privilege of working with Robina for the last 3 years. I am a Brazoria, as I was talking with Bobby earlier, I am a Brazoria County girl. Grew up in Lake Jackson, lived in Angleton for about the last 30 years. I was the Economic Development Director for the City of Angleton for 16, and then I veered off and went to Fort Bend County, only to, really and truly, it was to learn some new things. I went to work for the City of Stafford. Stafford did not actually have a property tax, and so I thought, well, this could be a really interesting place to learn some things. So I worked for Stafford for about 5 years, and then I came back home, and the Alliance recruited me to come back to work for them. So I came back about a little bit over 3 years ago, and working for a county versus a city is definitely a little bit different. I started my morning in Sweeney, and then I had to go to a meeting in Sugar Land. I went to Alvin, and I'm ending here. So I put a lot of miles on my car getting to go all over Brazoria County, but I love what I do. I'm going to give you just kind of a little overview of what we do. We are a small, this is going to be old news for Robina, so she'll just have to look at me and smile. We run we have a small office. There are 3 of us, but we primarily, every single day, we work to make Brazoria County the kind of place that businesses want to come to. We do a little bit of everything. We are the county's sort of economic development representative. So as leads come in from the governor's office, and I don't know if any of you guys see those leads. In a lot of cases, the governor's office actually requires you to have what they consider a certified economic developer, but those leads come into our office. And what we try to do at that point is, if we believe it's a good fit somewhere in Brazoria County, whether it's Freeport or Pearland or anywhere in between, then we'll sort of go into our system. We have a database of available property, and we'll just see if there's anything that we have, because sometimes it's something as small as 5 acres, and sometimes it's 5,000 acres. And then you start going through the list of things that they want. They have to have railroad, or it has to be on the water, and you've got to have deep water access, or all of those kinds of things. So we sort of, every morning, we mull through the leads that come out of the governor's office, and then we sort of take them from there. If it's something that we believe there's a fit, and I'm gonna use you guys as an example, just to help you better understand. Let's just say there's a piece of property in Manvel that has 1,000 acres. And you may have shared with me before, and you said, Patty, we would love to have let me think of something really exciting. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll use a real example. Patty, we would love to have a medical glove manufacturer here in Manvel. And so a lead for that comes in, and they need 1,000 acres. And I go, wow, Manvel has 1,000 acres, and this is something that they're looking for. That then, depending on the city, helps us decide what to do next. What I'd probably do next is find one of you guys. My first call would probably be to Robina and say, okay, we've got this that we think fits there. What do you think? What do you want me to do with it? She would probably say, send it over to Dan. Let Dan take a look at it. For cities that don't have economic development directors, we will do as much or as little with that project as you want us to. There are some cities, Pearland specifically, Pearland they want it all to themselves. So we send it to them. They know that we'll help however we can. Most other cities in our community typically will say, even if they have an economic development director, I'll use an example of Alvin has a new economic development director, Paul. I just left a meeting with him. Freeport has one. A lot of other cities around here do. But if it's someone like a West Columbia, then West Columbia may say, although they have sort of a part-time person that kind of does their tourism and works with their economic development stuff, they may say, okay, we don't have the expertise on this. So will you help us figure out what we can do to decide whether or not this is something that we're really interested in? And if it is, then the governor's office sends kind of a whole database full of information that we got to fill out. And it's usually things like, is there enough water? Is there enough power? You guys know all of that. You're seeing the new growth coming to you. And so we will help really anybody that asks for it to get all of that information put together, and then we'll submit it back to the governor's office. We do the same thing with Greater Houston Partnership. GHP sometimes gets things that are more regional. Someone may have come to them and said, we're only interested in Brazoria, Galveston, and Harris County. So they may have things that are actually more regional. When things come from the governor's office, a lot of times it may be us up against someone in Lubbock, looking for the same type thing. So that's the biggest thing that I want all of you to know, that if you guys ever come up with something and you say, there's something that we really want here. I know a lot of you are, I've lived in Angleton for a very long time, and everybody there wants a Chick-fil-A, and I know that, not just because I worked there, but because I want one too. But some of the other kind of high-level things that we do, I will tell you all, and I don't want to pretend like, and I sure don't want to say it with the mayor in the room, I didn't know before anybody else, but I knew real early on about your HEB. And I was super excited about it. And I have a lot of friends that live in this area that were super excited, and I had to keep my mouth shut. Because one of the things that we do with the money that we collect from memberships, and I know that just because it happens every day, I can't remember the last one, but we take the money that comes in from the membership money, and we try to find things that will benefit every community in Brazoria County. And one of those things is a very high-level demographics program. So I have no doubt that she has stood in here a number of times. I worked with Jo Beth Prohaska with Weitzman when they first started looking at that whole area there. And that was really exciting because I knew what that was going to mean for this whole part of Brazoria County to have something like an HEB there. And so, although this program is super expensive, it's about $50,000 a year, rather than you guys subscribing to it and Lake Jackson subscribing to it and Alvin subscribing to it, we just tell everybody, why don't you let us do that? And then anything you need, you just call us. We'll run it all and we'll send it back to you. And you do whatever you need, whatever need that is. Sometimes, honestly, it's as small as a corner. You may have a developer come in and, they say, well, we're looking at this particular corner and it's somebody that you're really interested in having. And they're like, but we're not sure what the daytime population is in that area. Well, we can pull that. We can literally take a corner of any city, any part of Brazoria County, whether it's in a city or it's in an ETJ. And we can take that corner and we can run it all different sorts of ways that can show who lives there, what the median income is. Oh my goodness, you wouldn't believe the things that they pull. And this company that we use, they don't just, unfortunately, most of us have access to the Census Bureau numbers. We're not always absolutely sure how accurate those are. And we also know that when you have numbers that only come out every 10 years, sometimes you're like, okay, well, that was 8 years ago. I wonder, and you guys know from the type of growth that you're seeing here, that those numbers are outdated very quickly. And so we have several things like that. Our demographic program, we have sort of a workforce development program that we can look at where people are living and where people are working. So that a number of years ago, previous to my time at the Alliance, but it's one that we still use a lot, the manufacturing companies on the south end of town were saying, on the south end of the county, were saying, all of our people are driving to Houston. They all live in Houston, so they're not a part of our communities. And they said, it's because we don't have a place for them to live. So the Alliance did a housing study to show developers that there was this huge need kind of in the middle part of the county. I can't tell you, there are some people that probably might try to, but I can't tell you that's the reason that you guys, have people like Hillwood and some of those, Meridiana and those kinds of places, because there was a push about 7 years ago to get that out in the hands of residential developers. So we do those kinds of things, which is very high level. We also do things on a significantly, we do lots of things on a local level too. In September, and we rotate north end of the county one year and south end the next year, and then we kind of flip back and forth. We do what's called a transportation and infrastructure summit. It's a half day, sort of, I don't want to call it a workshop because we just get to sit there and there's these people speaking to us. But we get all the speakers for it. This year it's back at Freedom Field, which is so much more convenient, I understand, for everyone on this end of the county. Last year, it was at Brazosport College at the Dow Academic Center. But we'll bring in, I lost my keynote speaker yesterday, so I don't have a keynote speaker. It was supposed to be the director of the General Land Office, and she had something come up. So I'm scrambling now to try to find a keynote at lunch so we can all have a nice lunch and hear someone great tell us about great things that are happening. But, we have a speaker from TxDOT that will be very specific talking to us about the things that are going on in Brazoria County that TxDOT is in charge of. And of course, if you drive down 288 at any point, you know that TxDOT stays busy. And you guys can see it driving down Highway 6 and driving down 35 and driving down 36 and almost anywhere that you're at in the county these days. So we have someone with TxDOT. We have someone that's actually going to talk to us that day about, there's a new broadband initiative that I'm sure the mayor has heard HGAC talk about. There's some money, there's some federal money out there for broadband that can sort of help better connect communities. So we have someone that's going to talk about that. We have someone, actually, I had a speaker from ERCOT, and then Hurricane Beryl happened. And the Monday after that, they called and said, we're not going to be able to speak that day. And I was like, you're just a chicken, I think is what you really are. But we do have someone from Centerpoint coming. And to talk about a couple of things, to talk about sort of hardening what their plans are as a company to sort of harden the system so that we're not all down. I don't know about all of you. I didn't have power for 5 days. To talk about some of those kinds of things, but to also talk about some things that are very important from an economic development standpoint, and no doubt are very important to people like you who are talking to people that are bringing new projects and bringing new residential subdivisions, is what are they doing to get ready for that? Because there are a lot of places in the state of Texas right now that if you had a project that said, I'd really like to come to Manvel, Texas, there are places that would have to say, I'm sorry, they can't get power to you for 3 years. And that's just not acceptable. It's just not. And so the thing I can say is that Centerpoint has worked with us a lot. And if you drive down 288, no doubt many of you have seen the pretend example that I was using earlier of the medical glove manufacturing company. It's very large, right about 1462, and they are getting ready. They should be open by the end of the year. They actually had some damage during that lovely little Cat 1 storm that none of us prepared for. But so when you see a lot of those big new transmission lines, some of that is Centerpoint at least trying to get power closer. It's not going to be right there at it, but if I can tell you that I can bring power to a company in 6, 9, even 12 months versus 3 years, you are way more likely to come here. If I tell you 3 years, I can't say that I would even blame anyone if they didn't want to do that. So Centerpoint really is working on some things as far as doing some strategic thought about bringing power to some sort of strategic places to make certain that as that growth comes and as it continues to come, and we know it's going to, we see it every day, that it won't take so long to get it actually where it needs to go. So, that's kind of a big, high level, very fast. If I told you a couple of the other things that I did today, you would go, oh my. But we laugh all the time. I go to Commissioner's Court every other week, and so I know that Stacey Adams is up here, and I know that Commissioner Cade comes up this way, and I know that even Commissioner Linder comes up over to the other side. But sometimes they'll say, I'll be walking out of court and they'll say, Patty, I sent somebody to you today. And I'll get that phone call and I'm like, oh my, what were they thinking? It'll be somebody calling asking if I know where a drainage ditch is, or, that they live on a certain road. Do I know when something's coming, that way or whatever? So we do a little bit of everything. We laugh and we say we're information central for a lot of places, and that's an okay thing. But like I said, I don't want to keep you guys all night because I could stand here and talk about it all night long. which is a shocker to some people like Robina, but are there any questions I can answer for anybody?
Hi, how are you doing, Patty?
Good.
In reference to the demographics program, is that software created by Esri or is it a different software?
It's a different software. They pull from a lot of Esri information.
Okay.
So yes.
And the data, the source of the data within that program?
It comes from several different programs. It comes from census data. It comes from Esri. I wish I would have thought about it. There's about 4 different groups that they pull their data from. And the thing that I will tell you, and when we send this out to people, we say, understand, we are pulling this from this particular, this particular software, but it does include, because places like Esri and census data, people at least have an idea of what that is. We have found that it's amazingly accurate for the most part. It's not always, and it is absolutely not perfect, and we tell people that, but it's the best that we've been able to find, especially when you're looking at an entire county. And in my opinion, until I came to work for the Alliance, I had only directly used Esri, or I went into the, census data online, because everybody can get in on that. But it is far more accurate than I would have ever dreamed. It actually is. And we just try to remind people that it's not perfect, but from our perspective and what we've seen, it does offer a really good glimpse into it. And we've even asked developers before. I mean, when we've sent them something, and because a lot of times, and we all know this, they'll pull their own information also, and they'll say, this is really accurate. This is far more accurate than we get from a lot of places. The one other thing that we do that I think is really important, because there may come a point where this is a really important piece for you guys. If a company comes to Manvel and they want to apply for a tax abatement with the county requires every company to do an economic impact analysis. The other software that we subscribe to is a company that the governor's office uses called Impact Data Source. They've been around for a long time. Bobby's probably heard of them. Dan may have heard of them. They are very well respected from the perspective of painting a true picture. And if I can ever run that if there's somebody not even very big, but somebody that you think you guys might be interested in, it's nothing more than a phone call for me. I can usually turn that around in about 3 days. So we subscribe to the software, and then it's created. Our software is updated every 12 months with Brazoria County figures, basically. And that's another thing that is really interesting. It pulls up things like, if you're going to bring 5 jobs, well, how much money are they going to, how far are they going to drive? How much money are they going to spend in town? How many hotel nights may they bring to your community? It's this just incredible wealth of knowledge. So if I can ever do that for anything, like I said, I've run them for convenience stores. I ran one for West Columbia a couple of weeks ago. That was for like a little gift shop. But there's nothing else like it in their area. And so it sort of looks at the numbers that are leaking. That's sort of the word that, that people use. The numbers that people are going somewhere else to buy. Say I buy shoes twice a week. Just pretend like that's not the case. And the town that I live in doesn't have a shoe store. So it's going to look at people like me and go, you're leaking a lot of money. You need to find a shoe store that will come to your town. So that's one of the other really big things, because the county requires every company that's going to apply for any type of incentive with them, for them to come to us first, and for us to run that. But then, like I said, we also do it for cities all the time. If there's something that you're interested in. we'll be happy to run it. We just need, there's literally kind of a one-page form that I usually send out and say, if you can get me this information, then I can put it into the program and I can give you some good information. So it's not hard at all. I'm an Aggie. If it were too hard, then they would probably have to find somebody else to do it. So anyway, so that was a great question, though.
Patty, I have a question. Have we done any projects together, the city and the Alliance, in the past? Like if you've had something from the state come in or anything like that?
No, since I've been there, the only thing that I've worked with is, and we don't, I don't want to say we don't, because we do frequently, but we don't recruit retail. We recruit jobs and capital investment. That's part of our mission statement. We want to find good jobs, and that's why we work very closely with both Alvin Community College and Brazosport College and U of H Clear Lake, to make certain that we can also train those people when we bring them in. But I have not worked on a specific project other than when I worked with Weitzman on some of the demographics for the area. I will tell you that there has been one other one that I can't be real specific about. There's one other one that has been very interested in a piece of property that I'm almost positive is in the Manvel ETJ, not Manvel city limits. And then we have one right now that if it comes to fruition, and you know, some of these, although we get the leads and stuff from the governor's office, a lot of these people, they'll just call our office and say, hey, and this is exactly what happened with this one. And it's kind of a mixed use from the perspective that it's a residential with some commercial mixed in that is interested in a piece of property that is in this area that would include some of Manvel. So,
Is there anything that we can do as a city or as a board that would help facilitate doing more together with the Alliance that we're not doing right now?
you know, I always encourage people, we would love for you to be involved, any of you, to, you know, I don't want this to sound bad. As I tell people all the time, we're not a chamber. We don't do any of the fun stuff. We do the more sort of meat and potatoes kind of things. So we only do 4 luncheons a year. We do a state of the county, typically the first part of the year. And I would be more than happy to, I know we all get a million emails. Anybody that would like to be on our distribution list, you can send them to Robina and she can email them all to me. Tammy, you can email them to us, whatever. We would love to add you to those. But the 4 luncheons that we do a year, we try very hard to make those luncheons that are something that you want to come to. Now, I love to come to the State of the Cities. Those are my favorite. But you may be more interested in the, we do an industry update every summer, and we actually just did it in the end of July. And we had Maxtra Healthcare, which is the new medical glove company. We had Scott Van Wagner from Ascend over in Chocolate Bayou. And you guys are going to see a lot of people living in your community and working in Chocolate Bayou, because I have about 6 projects right now. And not every project will come to fruition, but Chocolate Bayou is sort of an easy one right now because they have 12,000 acres available. We had the new site director from Dow, and Robina, who was the 4th one? This is terrible. Dow, Ascend. Volkswagen, yes. Were you there? Oh, okay, great. Yes. And Volkswagen.
I really enjoyed it, by the way.
Okay, really awesome. Volkswagen is a new tenant at the port. And we are thrilled to have them. And, you know, that's a good example of someone, you know, they talked to the port first, but they they were interested in an incentive from the county, didn't know if they would get one or not. So early on, we started working with them. I can't pretend like we recruited them because we did not. The port had a relationship with them, and so the port sort of brought them to town, but we were able to help them. We always laugh and say, we were able to seal the deal and bring the banana pudding because, we were able to help them do the things that the county wanted to see. They were bringing new jobs. They were bringing new capital investment. And so we just had that one in July. We'll have transportation and infrastructure at the end of September. And then we have a fourth quarter meeting that actually it's the end of October. We always try to do it before hunting season starts. And we're working on that. 2 years ago, we did the state of healthcare. That was kind of right as we were coming out of the pandemic, and it was very relevant. We try to always do things that are relevant to anybody from Pearland to Freeport. And so I would love to tell you that we're always successful. We're not always perfect. But like I said, when you have an office of 3, we try really, really hard. And we always have a really good lunch. So that's important too. I always tell people, you come to our luncheon, we're going to feed you well, if nothing else, So anybody that would like to be on our mailing list, like I said, let Tammy know. And we do not send out an overabundance of emails because we all get a million. They're typically nothing more than about our events coming up and, times and dates and those kinds of things. So, anyway, did I answer that? Okay.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Well, thank you, Patty, for being here and sharing this information. And just an observation, if you're looking for a good keynote speaker, you might be a good fit as.
Oh, you're so kind. I just like to talk. What can I say? The funny thing is, we were talking earlier. I have a daughter that just took the bar 2 weeks ago, and she's going to be this super quiet, you can never read her face attorney, and she is nothing at all like her mom. She looks just like me. She doesn't act like me at all. So.
Well, I have a question. So say that there's a company that doesn't have a whole lot of experience dealing with, accessing resources and things available to them. What would you suggest? Obviously we don't have somebody on staff that just specifically does economic development, but what would your suggestion be? Is that something y'all have resources available and y'all would be a good point of contact for these sort of?
Absolutely. We would be happy to do those. And sometimes the very first call, we can figure out exactly what they need to start with. It may be that we need to send them, they need to sort of start with the Small Business Development Center with either Alvin or with Bradsport College, because those people are phenomenal. And so, if they don't have a business plan or if they don't have something like that, but a lot of companies, you'd be surprised today, a lot of companies are sort of past that point. The one thing that we will always tell, and this comes from my 20-something years of municipal government, is when someone calls us and says, I think I'm gonna build me a building in Manvel, we always say, have you talked to anyone at the city yet? Because I know, yes, see, it's because of all my years of municipal government. Because I am always so sad when someone buys a piece of property and thinks they can do something that in their mind they can do, and they can't. And so we don't want that to be the case. We don't, and we're more than happy to be the bad guy when we can, to sort of take that off of all of you. But we, more times than not, when they get to the point of, having questions about zoning or, they may want to know, they may be ready to go straight to, where can I get money, And we can typically send them to some of those kinds of places. But more times than not, they really do want to ask the right questions. They want to know things about zoning. They want to know things about, well, where would my kid go to school there? Or, whatever the case is. And so a lot of times we may very well send some of those back to you guys. because you know your community better than anybody else. And we obviously don't want to give anybody incorrect information. And we will tell them up front that, although we can look at our maps and say, yep, we believe that's in the Manvel city limits, but we encourage you to call City Hall and tell them the exact tract that you're looking at. And, you might want to ask questions about zoning and permits. Because sometimes, I wish if I had all night, I could tell y'all some stories. Because there are people, and we will just be cruising along thinking this is a great project for Brazoria County, blah, 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 blah. And, Bobby's daughter in Lake Jackson is like, oh, yeah, this is going to happen. And then all of a sudden, we find out that it's going to take them 9 years to get a TCEQ permit because you are not going to believe what they are about to send out of their roofs, And we're like, okay. We wish you would have told us that in the very beginning. We could have saved us all some energy, But we probe enough to try to get wherever the next place they need to land is, and then we try to sort of send them in that direction. And I'm always amazed when people want to they don't want anybody to know. And so sometimes I feel like they'll call our office and they think we're an office of 500. And I'm like, well, there's 3 of us. But I can assure you that nothing that we discuss in here is going to leave the door. But it always kind of makes me laugh when I feel like they think we're this huge corporation. We're like, no, well, no, we're not, But sometimes they may not want to call Dan because they're like, oh, he's a city manager. I don't want him to know anything about it yet. Or I don't want Tammy to know. And so sometimes they'll call us. We always try to send them back to where they really need to be. But if we can sort of help them in the interim to maybe give them a little bit of comfort level, hey, the city would love to talk to you and they would love to, to share with you. And if they need to, they'll probably even sit down with, their public works department if that's an issue for you or whatever the case is. And so sometimes for us, literally, it's nothing more than a matter of trying to make people feel comfortable. And, if you couldn't tell, I was a cheerleader in high school, and I'm always like, I can sell Brazoria County to you, but we also want them in the right place. We want them in the right place for you. We want them in the right place for them because, as I say to people all the time, and I am not a typical economic development person, because there are a lot of people that are in my position that they just, at the end of the day, want to be able to say, I brought in 10,000 jobs when I worked at this job, and now I want to go to another job. This is my community. And if you come in and you bring your business here and you're not successful, then nobody wins. And I try, and people that have worked with me in the past know that that's sort of what I hang my hat on. My precious parents are not alive anymore, but I teach an ethics class at the Community Development Institute every year, and I always say to them, I've spent my entire career thinking, if my dad read something about me tomorrow morning on the front page of the newspaper, how would that make me feel? And most of the people in that class are really young, but that's usually the quietest I have them all week long. But I mean that very sincerely, that if it's something that you want, even if I don't think it's a good fit, that's not what I'm here for. As I remind people frequently when they're asking for an incentive from the commissioners, I'm like, I can talk to every single one of them, but please understand, I don't even get one vote. I'm just information central to give them the information. I want everybody to win. I really do. That's when I say that, I mean that.
Anyone else have anything for Miss Patty?
And y'all can get Robina if you want to, because she comes to my board meetings every other month. And, so if you say, you tell that woman that came in and talked for too long, and she'll bring it to me. I know exactly where she sits. I know exactly where I see her, so.
I would want to make sure that we're utilizing the BCA for this next move contract that we're looking at. Is that something that we've got, that we're taking into consideration, how they can be involved with what we're doing with next move?
So we sent the survey, Patty, we sent the survey to you. I don't know if it went to you or Debbie.
It could have gone to Debbie.
From the EDC has entered into an agreement with the Next Move group
Okay?
to help them do a strategic plan specific to the EDC. They've never had one.
Okay?
Part of that was one-on-one meetings that they set up, put a schedule out last week to do 30-minute one-on-one meetings. There was also a link in there for those that couldn't come to set up a webinar type or a Zoom type meeting if they wanted, as well as a link for just a questionnaire. We sent it to many of the dignitaries throughout the county to get their input. We sent it to the Alliance, of course, the entire board, the council, and some, the school, ACC.
Sure.
Different businesses in that sense as well. Is that what you're meaning? Oh, okay.
Well, we will be happy to work, and as a matter of fact, I'm going to do some work with Alvin. They're about to start a comprehensive plan. Actually, I think have been doing it for a while, but I'm going to help the group that they are contracting with on the comprehensive plan to give them some sort of overall information on the county. But Tammy, I'm just going to say this. I was on vacation last week because my daughter took the bar and she needed a break and so did her mom. But Debbie's really good about either going ahead and signing me up for stuff or not. So let me check into that in the morning, and if
I can resend it as well. So what it didn't do was let us, I can't see who all replied or who signed up.
Okay.
Because they handled all of that. We just handled sending it out because they were afraid if they sent
Okay.
it, people wouldn't recognize them and acknowledge it. But I'll send it to you personally.
Okay, that'd be awesome. And
then
like I said,
and if both of you, even if she answered it, they would love your input as well.
Okay.
And that online survey has not closed yet, nor
Okay.
have the Zoom meetings.
that'd be awesome. And we'd love to. And to answer your question, we do things like that all the time, especially from sort of a county perspective. And that was one of the reasons I was meeting with Alvin today. They were saying, hey, can you help us with some information for our comprehensive plan? We've hired Baxter and Woodman, and I said, absolutely. You don't even need to ask that question. Like I said, Tammy knows where to find us. But I have actually made it through all my emails from last week, and I did not see anything. But
I sent most everything
to Debbie, and that's good because she keeps me in line. So, but I will, if you'll send it to me, and then I'll double check with her in the morning, because honestly, she could have signed me up for it and I wouldn't have even known yet. Actually, Freeport is getting ready to do something very similar. I don't know if they're using the same group, but I'm signed up to do an online thing with them actually next Monday. I do know that, but anyway. I'll be happy to. Anytime y'all have anything like that, even if you need me to push some of those commissioners to make things happen, you let me know. I'll be happy to. They don't always love me for that, but that's okay. So, okay. Well.
But I just want to say, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't have, they had the questions, but I just appreciate you because, I love coming down there, hanging out with you guys. So.
I know, we love having you. And like I said, anytime you guys are interested, and like I said, just let Tammy know, anybody that would like to be added to our, sort of our distribution email list that has our events and those kinds of things. If you can come once a year, we'd love to see you. And if you can't, we understand. We're all running, so, but thank you for inviting me. You invite me once a year, and I'll come once a year. If I need to bring banana pudding next time, I'll do that.
We have a great recipe from Karen over.
Okay, I was really sad to see that on y'all's website, and I follow you guys a lot. I love I really do love when I get to watch sort of communities just sort of come out of their shell. I really do. And so I've got to really, even just being in Angleton, I've got to really watch Manvel. And I think y'all made a great move with Dan. And even though he's a public works guy, engineering type, I knew that because the mayor said that at the State of the City last year. So, but I always try to make those luncheons because I love getting to see the things that are, and when I say the things, I get to read about things. I typically know things, but you see the people and you see how excited people are. And those are the things that keep me going. When I don't love what I do anymore, hopefully I'll be able to afford to retire, but I got to pay off law school right now, so that's not going to happen for a while. So anyway.
Well, we really appreciate you coming and taking the time with us tonight, and I speak for all of us that we'll be able to do more with you guys as we move forward here.
And we would love nothing more than that. We really would. So y'all just let us know.
Thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome. If y'all don't mind, I'm going to scoot out. I'd love to stay and play, but I'm going to.
You don't have to do it.
Okay. Well, thank y'all again. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, next up we have item B, update on Next Move Group Economic Development Visioning Plan. And I've got an email from Miss Alley from Next Move Group that I'm going to read out to us that's a little bit of an update. Next Move Group consultants have been actively engaging with our community, meeting with city leaders, EDC members, and council members to gain a deeper understanding of Manvel's strengths and weaknesses. They have also conducted surveys to gather additional insights. Next month, they will return to host a joint visioning session with City Council and the EDC. Where they will present their findings, share examples from other towns, and collaborate with us on potential strategies for Manvel. During this session, we will collectively vote on these strategies, after which the Next Move Group team will develop a vision for Manvel's economic development. So first and foremost, did everybody that's on the board do a meeting or any kind of Zoom meeting? Has anybody not met with Next Move Group?
I
Damon
haven't met
or
with them.
Tina?
I did the survey.
Have you guys?
Oh, I met with them.
Okay, so we still have quite a few of us. We for sure, as a group, since it's our deal, need to at least do a Zoom call with them.
The Zoom call.
And that's still open, right, Tammy?
I can send that back out so that you guys can pick a time to do
For all
it.
of us to do it together, you're saying?
No. It would be the one-on-one.
Yeah, so we did one-on-one meetings. They were here last week. And if you can't make the one-on-one meeting, then they have virtual. So it's just a Zoom call. 30 minutes, I think, is what it is. But, definitely, I think our board, since it's our strategic plan, everybody, you want your opinion heard, right? And so we want to know what you guys want. And it's everybody individually. And then we'll come together with all those ideas at our next meeting and start picking as a group what we want to do. So please do that. Please, as soon as you can, get with them, and Tammy will facilitate that.
And I have one thing.
Okay?
And then they did want to know, the next meeting is scheduled for September the 11th, which is the second Wednesday in September. They were asking if that could be bumped to September the 25th. They'd like, if possible, a little more time to pull all the information together. If not, he said he could make the 11th work, but I think he'd be happier with the work they've done if they had a little more time. So that would be that joint meeting. Not sure if y'all want to look at your calendars and see if that 2 weeks difference is a big deal. If you want, you can wait until the end of the meeting and decide maybe you want to have 2 meetings in September. There is an item on your agenda to talk about that Economic Development Resiliency Grant Program. So if y'all decide maybe you want to meet on the 11th as just y'all's meeting and then schedule another one for the joint meeting on the 25th, we could. Yes.
Do we know if council can do the 25th?
So I do not yet, because I just got that email with that date. So if that date works with y'all, then I'll send an email out and poll the council that could come.
Okay, so first we need to decide if it works for us. Does it not work for anyone on the 25th?
That's good.
Okay, we're all good with that?
And then I'll email all the council to see if we can get a quorum of the council to be here so that that date would work for that. Then the other thing you guys can decide at the end of the meeting is if you want to still meet on the 11th and maybe have more discussion that might come out of item C tonight. You guys can decide then and let me know.
My only request is that we make this a potluck.
I'm going to bring some banana pudding, I promise. I was going to
Oh,
bring
good.
it
Do that, do
today.
that. Okay.
You guys don't want me making the banana pudding, I promise you. Okay, so can we move on from that one then? Any other feedback on the process for that, on those that did do interviews? Anything that anybody would like to add on what's going on with that, with Next Move Group? No? Okay, we'll move on to the next item. Okay, item C, we have consideration and possible action to direct staff on an economic development resiliency grant program. In our packet, right, everybody has a copy of that? In our packet, we have a, as Bobby called it, a very rough draft of what this resiliency grant program is. I'll just read the first paragraph for everybody, and this will give us a really good overview of what the point of this would be. The purpose of the MEDC Economic Resiliency Program is to promote economic viability immediately after a hurricane, natural disaster, or other local state of emergency by incentivizing backup generators that would allow businesses to remain open or reopen immediately after a storm. The goal is to enhance the ability of key essential businesses to remain open or reopen for business as soon as possible after a disaster where power would ordinarily prevent the business from operating or reopening. This would assist in the business losing revenue through disposing of food products or not being able to offer a service to the community. Employees could continue to be paid, and the community would have access to much-needed supplies during their recovery effort. The main beneficiaries would be targeted essential businesses in commercial areas served by natural gas lines. So, of course, we had Beryl that came through not very long ago, a couple weeks ago, and I think we all saw it in the city. A lot of people didn't have power. Getting fuel turned into a nightmare. The grocery stores were closed. All the stores, I think, were closed for some amount of time. And so the idea here is that we could partner with some private businesses to be able to put the generators in, but then also hold them accountable to either stay open or reopen as soon as possible. I think there's some thought here of, is it a possibility? Can we make them do that, right? Would they do it if we offered them these incentives? And then, B, what would that look like from our standpoint? In this rough draft, there's a couple of different options of how we would provide grants. I think we said up to 50%, 50% up to, what do we have in there, Bobby, $10,000?
For the small generator or small business one, and then there's also possible provision for larger businesses that may be able to get, business powered with a much bigger unit, which would be a lot more than 10,000, 50% of it.
Like an HEB or somebody like that? Is that kind of what we're thinking?
Well, it depends. Even like Honore's, when he brought in a generator, his wasn't the regular 25K that you could run a house or a small business. And when he brought one on wheels, which I think he said was 75.
It was 75 or 100K.
Yeah, and but he said really the one in place could be, 125, really, something like that.
And that's a lot smaller than a HEB.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of details that, that we would need to talk about and discuss on what we would be willing to do, what our budget would allow us to do, what is an essential business, how do we pick the winners and losers on this, who would we offer it to, all the ideas here are really just kind of spitfiring ideas off, and you guys can read through this. But, it's gas stations, it's anybody that has groceries. Ice was a big one. I know that I read a lot about people needing to keep, medicines and things like that cool and weren't able to. In my opinion, it's really just the basics of, like, the necessities of life for that small amount of time. This one was really not bad in the big scheme of things. I know some people had it 5 days, but what if we had 3 weeks or something along those lines?
And Jason, just to be clear, it wasn't entirely altruistic. It would also have a component where the city and city staff and first responders would have access to some assets. And that's really kind of what the way it came out was through the hurricane, wondering how long is this going to last? How long is it going to take business to stay open or to get open? Gosh, they must be losing a lot of money. That's awful for them. We would really be grateful for some supplies, make sure we had things, and then the citizens, of course, but then other businesses, their employees might not be able to get there. They can't get gas, or they've got stuff at home, or they need supplies. So it could actually help not only that businesses, but other businesses get open first if you have those assets available. So that's kind of how it started. And really, this is just some thoughts put down there how we would accomplish that. But we had the pole sign replacement program. I don't know, it was probably before your time, that it wasn't really, super popular, but it was a kind of the same concept, or it was a matching thing up to a certain amount to incentivize people to replace the pole signs with a modern sign. And we got, I guess, at least one application. I guess the daycare did it. I think might have done that, if I remember right, Tammy.
So they
But-
did not have a pole sign, but
They did get the, anyway, yeah.
do a monument sign for them.
So anyway, it's for economic development. I don't know exactly what our budget is, especially if we're looking at possibly funding some sort of, maybe not, if not full-time, a part-time, or, something kind of position. So it's really just the beginning of some thoughts to see if there's any buy-in, and see if you want us to go further with this, so.
I want to point out one thing that is in here that, if you guys haven't read it yet, we were talking about it being on certain corridors within the city, pretty much Highway 6. It's really where the gas lines are. That's really what it comes down to. And we have some access to some maps, and we'd have to kind of identify who would even be eligible for that. But one of the thoughts there is that you'd have, a natural gas line that you could run the generator. We know that you're going to be able to run the generator, even during those disasters. And so that's in there somewhere. The geographical area, we'd have to decide on where that's going to be. What is an essential service or business? And then how many and how much money would we, devote to something like that? So, questions?
So would this be coming solely out of our EDC budget, or are there other, entities that would be contributing as well?
This is designed solely for MEDC. The city could do it under its 380, but the city budget being so tight, I'm not sure that's really going to have much ability for the city to do that at this point, but in the future, it's possible. But right now, this is just for the funds that you control, which is the sales tax money.
And is the county making any, considerations for this sort of thing?
So this is brand-new idea. It's the first time we brought it to you. I really can't speak for the county, and I don't know if we'd rely on them, but it'd be certainly great if they participated or offered a similar program. But this is just for Manvel. We're on our own. We want to take care of our residents, our businesses, our first responders, and this would be maybe a big help.
A thought might be just like any grant program, if there's a component that y'all take care of, and then the in-kind or whatever, however they come up with the local match is up to them. So if they wanted to reach out to the city, or they wanted to reach out to the county or whatever, or we could probably help them with that. But I think maybe the first step is setting a goalpost for y'all. What would y'all feel comfortable? Is this even something you want to entertain? It seems like a great idea.
It is.
If you were driving around looking for ice or gas for that matter,
Propane.
propane, yeah.
And now we've got Next Level and some other medical facilities in town. We've got a hardware store, dollar stores, even a vet might be something that'd be really important. I mean, there's all kind of.
Recycling facility.
Yeah.
You said it, not me. And I just want to point out, we're at the very infant stage of these ideas, and so anything that's in here can be changed. This is just something that Bobby threw together as an outline for us to start with. we don't have to do 10 in a year, we can do 2 in a year if that's what we think that our budget allows. We still need to do some studies on what it costs to get a generator, what the average size, I think, for these kind of places is going to be. You know, if it's $150,000, then we're probably, you know, I don't know, we might be spinning our wheels a little bit here. It really, there's a lot of factors that I think play into this. And so we just need to have conversation about it. So anything that you guys can think of that we need to be thinking of and that we can kind of give back to the staff of, hey, you know, bring this on the next one and then.
Said one of the main things we have to really concentrate on, what is the essential businesses? What do we really need to operate as a city, not just for the citizens, but everybody, the businesses, the other businesses, city council, the first responders. So the main thing is truly figuring out what is essential, because it all depends how deep you want to dive into the weeds of what we would call essential.
And will we be held, because we're MEDC, to, it would need to produce some type of economic benefit for us to be able to do that program?
Well, it's basically, it's on the capital expenditure, you know, with the capital investment. That's why it's only half, for instance. They would have to put X amount into, you know, if you're putting in 100,000 kW, is that like a $60,000 investment? Is that an $80,000 investment? We get 10 or 20 or whatever we choose from the city, that helps. But ultimately, it's that investment. Plus, you're furthering economic development by basically allowing sales and businesses to remain viable in a time where nobody else is able to, or, you know, they don't have to shut down. I don't know how many businesses carry business interruption insurance, which arguably should or would cover that. But when you ask them about it, a lot of people have never even heard of it. I brought that up to the chamber, you know, when we were talking about what insurance coverage the chamber has in our internal division. Never thought about that. Oh, okay, well, or we just have a big savings account, you know. But anyway, little things like that can make a difference to businesses in town. That was kind of part of that. So.
Jason,
Any
is the-
thoughts from anyone? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to, is the general consensus, though, that, I mean, hey, let us flesh this out a little bit and work, you know, we didn't want to spin our wheels, obviously, but if it's something you want us to dig into, we can absolutely do that. And if you think of other questions, you know, throughout the week or whatever, absolutely just let us know.
I think this is an excellent idea, because I know, like, on the mud, they were talking about with, No, I think it's an excellent idea, because we had like a Zoom meeting with all of the MUDs, and a lot of them, you know, they were hit hard. And I know our generator, we're going to have to need a new one. That's like $800,000. But they're coming up with a plan, because Centerpoint, they don't want to blame Centerpoint for falling apart, but to the point where a lot of the subdivisions or a lot of the MUDs can have their own, so they can keep their, you know, subdivisions open. But so I'm open for this, because it hit everybody, you know, unexpectedly. So I'd rather be prepared this time than not. So I say yes to y'all go further on it.
Uh-oh. Well, so in addition to what Mr. Atkinson was saying, of identifying what the essential businesses are and kind of getting an idea of what size of a generator that they would need, and kind of being able to see those numbers on paper, I would be curious to know if, you know, we're able to even make a purchase on a bulk purchase of these generators and maybe get a much better price that way, and then partner with one of our local electrical contractor companies, you know, in a way that it's able to benefit them, and just kind of be a win all the way around, is something I would want to consider.
Yes, because install cost will be higher than what you would think.
So is our general consensus that, yes, we like this idea, and we would like to move forward with more planning on this idea?
Yes.
Yes.
Especially with the language dealing with how we want to make the businesses, as you say, use the generator if an event happen. Like, how do we go about that? Like, this is a free country. I don't want to be like, hey, you better open up. You know, we don't want to be like, we don't want to be like that. So we have to have some type of language.
We can't do that. Obviously, if it's a really big storm and the employees can't
Right.
get there, or, you know, something happened, then, but, I mean, it's,
We don't get to call dibs.
yeah, to the extent, and that's why we may want to have multiple. You know, if one gas station's canopy crashes down on the gas pumps and can't pump, okay, well, we might have a second one, and, you know, maybe there's a gas line with one that's a little bit off the beaten path, so that everybody going down Highway 6 going, oh, look, gas, and then there's a line all the way down to Alvin. But, you know, there's a lot of thought that we can put into this ahead of time, and scoping out where the gas lines are, I think, is really the first step to kind of help what is even available, and that's what we've kind of started doing in advance of our meeting tonight.
Also, this may sound pessimistic, but as we can see, when we have grants and funds open for businesses, we got to make sure that no company like that have generators already and they just want to upgrade, and the old generator is working just fine. You know, I think this is more for people business who do not have a generator at all and require the help, not businesses that already have a generator up and running. They just say, I need a new upgrade so I can write it off or something. You know, just my thought.
Well, remember, you would be analyzing and approving each application, and I'm assuming have any applicant make a presentation, so I think you'd be able to see if they qualify in your eyes or not, so.
And we can make that a checkbox on our application of, do you currently have a backup generator, right? And there will be, or we talked about doing a clawback program as well to make sure that they're maintaining that generator, so that, you know, one of my hesitations is we don't have an event for 5 years, and then we do have, and this happens to houses all the time, right? And it's like the one moment you needed it and it don't start, you know, it starts once a week, but it didn't start that time because it wasn't maintained. So just making sure that somehow, you know, they're held accountable to make sure that it runs when the time comes. Okay. Well, my opinion is that we go ahead and try to identify essential businesses, even if it's a very small list, for instance, gas stations and anybody that sells food and ice. And start at something like that, have staff start looking at the GIS maps or whatever resources we have available for gas lines, and then just comprise a list of eligible businesses in the city that we can even look at, and then maybe start digging a little deeper on what it would cost for those specific businesses. We can probably reach out to some of those businesses directly and say, this is what we're looking to do. You know, we'll get a quote or whatever and figure out how big of a generator we would need, and then what it would cost to put something like that in, and then be able to move forward from there. Any thoughts on that?
It's got to be a starting point, so that's where it's the best place to start.
So fuel stations and anything that sells grocery, anything else besides that?
But restaurant foods delivering to first responders would be really helpful. I mean, I'm saying like Bighorn shows up with some barbecue, which they've done, and I don't know how they do it, but they always seem to take care. If Honore's showed up with a tray of jambalaya, but he had to have that towed one that he brought from somewhere he rented. So maybe not just groceries, but also really any place that you could get food and drink would be helpful. Mm-hmm. Or perhaps we can just, allow us to get with Jason and we can just have lunch and just start brainstorming and writing some more stuff down, getting into more details.
Yep.
I mean, I'd be happy to do that with you, Jason and Dan, and probably need Rosie for the money part, Tammy.
When we start talking about essential services, I was just reminded of, a few years ago with COVID, and that was a big topic. And there's some information on Department of Emergency Management. Maybe that work's already been done for us. So let us dig in a little bit there, because we're not the first person to ever use that phrase, right? And I was going to suggest critical facilities because we already have that definition in our code, but that's I don't think that's going to be broad enough for what we're trying to do. So essential is probably where it's at.
I do think like the healthcare stuff too could be very important. Mm-hmm. The ER or the urgent care that we have already. I would say we put them on the list and just look at viability for that. Donut shops.
I would say no donut shops and no dentist office.
We'll be out of money.
Let's not discriminate against the donut shops.
I was saying include the donut shops. Okay,
We can do that
recuse
after the
myself on
storm.
that. Okay, so any other feedback on anything, any ideas before we close it? Staff, you guys are, yeah, good on that? Yeah? Every day. Oh, I wish it was that way. Okay, where's my? Okay, so we need to take a. Okay, we do not have to take any action on that. We will move on to approving our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as is.
We have a motion. A second?
I second that motion.
All right, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
Before you adjourn, if we could just circle back on the meeting idea for the 11th, if you guys want to have a meeting on the 11th, and possibly the 25th, or if you want to just, the biggest item right now is going to be this topic for the Economic Development Resiliency Grant Program. If you guys want to come back to the table in a few weeks and discuss that, or if you want to wait till the 25th, not sure when you guys will be meeting to kind of brainstorm on it.
I just want to add, the 25th is going to be a really busy meeting, with it being a joint meeting with council and having Next Move Group here. It's going to be a really packed meeting.
That's what I'm saying, and that should give, still going on to the 11th, gives them enough time to get there, and it gives us a chance to see if there's anything else we need to tweak or anything, then it gives them a couple more weeks to tweak something, and then would be a quick vote after that. But to get to where we need to be, I think we need a meeting on that before the 25th.
Everybody good with that? Okay. yeah.
Okay, so we'll meet on the 11th and the 25th.
I want to, one more thing before we close. We have Coffee and Connections here tomorrow morning at what time? 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock, and we are hosting. So if anybody from EDC can join that, it'll be in here? In here, okay, tomorrow morning. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
You did?
Yeah.
In consent agenda.
That was on the consent agenda. Make a motion to adjourn.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes 6-0.